Okay, so I guess we'll just start out by just kind of let us know where we are and why we're here today.
Where we are, okay. We are here talking to people in the community, landowners, people who are concerned about the Energy East project, which is a proposed project by TransCanada that would involve converting 3,000 kilometers of the Canadian mainline, which currently handles natural gas, running from Hardisty, Alberta to just west of Montreal, and then building about 1,400 kilometers of new pipeline from west of Montreal that would run across into New Brunswick and terminate in St. John. And what that would do is handle Western Canadian crude. You've got crude from the Bakken Formation in Saskatchewan, and you got some bitumen from the Alberta oil sands that will be going over.
Aside from the bitumen as well, what are some of the main concerns, and what have you guys kind of done
what are we
to
hearing?
Make sure that
Gotcha.
these things aren't going to take place?
Okay, I'm going to talk. So you want to talk about pipeline safety?
Yeah.
First of all. Okay, no problem. This will be one of the most technologically advanced pipelines in North America. What we would be doing would be with the part of the mainline that would be converted from natural gas, which is currently handling, and is kind of undersubscribed at the moment. So we took a look at the market and decided that there would be value in shipping Western Canadian oil east as opposed to natural gas, because there's a big market for it. Currently, there are refineries in Eastern Canada that are getting up to 75% of their feedstock, shipping it in from countries like Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Nigeria. They're buying it at a premium. They're shipping it over the water to get here, and by using a Made in Canada option, it would be environmentally safer, developed under some of the most stringent environmental laws in the world, and would be able to be done at a much lower cost that would possibly one day be passed on to consumers, lowering costs for everybody. So that's the market case for it. Now you want to talk about the environmental thing. So I'm going to talk first about how we would convert the pipeline over. Okay. So in terms of the natural gas pipeline, if we get approved to build a project, what we would be doing with that 3,000 kilometers of existing natural gas pipeline is obviously we would drain out all the natural gas. Then we would send something through it called a smart pig, a pipeline inspection gauge that has thousands of sensors on it that would basically go through the pipe and look for any imperfections using a number of different ways of detecting these things. And then we would identify sections of the pipe that need to be repaired, and then we go through the entire length, make repairs inside if possible, and where necessary, even dig up sections of the pipeline and either repair it or completely cut it out and rebuild it. So that's what we'd be doing. And then when we're talking about the other 1,400 kilometers running to St. John's, that would be a new build of pipeline. So that's the thing. Yeah. So I hope that answered that question. Please go ahead. I'm sorry the answers are so long.
I guess what I'm interested in is obviously the bitumen, but what else? Like, what are some of the concerns you guys have come up?
Gotcha. It's actually there's a lot of misunderstanding out there about the nature of bitumen and diluent running through pipelines. Studies have shown that it's no more damaging the pipelines than any other form of crude oil that's currently being used. In truth, the most corrosive agent in a pipeline is actually water. That's the most corrosive thing. So the goal is to keep the water content down as much as possible. So that answers that question, at least. Let me know if you have any follow-up to it. Let me think here. You want to talk about what people are learning here?
I would like to know, because I've seen a lot of stuff along the way, which kind of inspired me to come here, where a lot of people are concerned about various different things, and they've actually shown, how they feel about it on the internet. And I just want to see what you may have come across, because you've been from city to city, right?
Obviously, yeah. I mean, obviously, we're following the debate in the media, but on the internet. But most importantly, that's why we're holding these open houses, to come and find out what people are thinking. People who have homes and businesses in the proximity of the pipeline, people who live in municipalities where the line is traveling near, and people who just have a general concern. That's why we're having this here today. And what we're finding on an anecdotal basis is that most people are coming in and going straight to the maps to find out exactly where the pipeline is going to run, what the route is, and how close they are to it. Secondly, they want to talk about, I think they really want to talk about, obviously, the safety aspect, find out what we're doing, find out what the pipeline looks like, how it's going to be coded, how we're going to convert it, and how we're going to build it. And our goal is to give them as much information as possible, so we have an array of technical experts available to talk to them. and give them as much information as possible. So whether they agree with the project or not, at least they have the proper information. And we also have some people coming in who are simply opposed to oil sands development, energy development, fossil fuel development in general. And of course, you're never going to change any of their minds because they're against the product. We're not a producer. We're simply a shipper, but they're against it in general, and so they want to come and make their views known about it. I should stress, though, that when you look at worldwide greenhouse gas emissions, a number of studies have shown that the oil sands are only responsible for about 1/100th of a percentage point of global GHG emissions. When you begin comparing them to oil from Venezuela, in other countries, you begin comparing it to, say, coal-fired generation in the U.S. The oil sands are just a blip on the scale compared to that, and so we just want people to be aware of that. But and then you have some people simply who just want to spread misinformation about the project because they're against it in general, and that's what open houses like this are designed to combat. Any other questions that you gentlemen have about safety? Let me give you one example. Okay. People have raised outside. There was some material they were handing out showing incidents that happened along some of the lines along here. The most recent incident that we have had in the area of Thunder Bay, where we're speaking, involved an incident that happened, a natural gas leak that happened near Beardmore. I believe it's about 170 kilometers away from here, where we had a combination of water and pressure within the pipe lead to something called stress corrosion cracking, where the pipe actually cracked. There were a series of small pipes, almost like a wrinkle in the pipe, and you had a bunch of gas get out. And it raised a lot of concern, and we investigated it very, very closely. And what we wound up doing was finding out what caused the problem, and we actually wound up adjusting the PIGs, the pipeline inspection gauges that we send through the pipeline, to look for exactly that combination of water, pressure, air, the bend on the pipe that resulted in that. And we've actually been watching to make sure that we can diagnose it before it happens again and watch for it and prevent it from ever happening. So what you're trying to do is learn as you go to keep your pipeline safe and to be a good neighbor for the people who live near your pipelines. When we're crossing under a river, we use greater mitigation in place to protect the water body, and we do the same thing near a populated area. So we will bury the pipe at a deeper level, and we will use a thicker grade of pipe to just reduce the risk as much as possible that anything will happen.
And what do you guys do and have in place to ensure that if anything were to happen, that the oil will stop moving? Like, I know there's some valving system and stuff, but
in what way? Sorry about that.
Well, like, say in the event of pipeline cracking, breaking, something corroding in, and considering there are large bodies of water there, how can we be certain that they're not going to be greatly affected?
Okay. We install thousands of sensors along our pipelines that can detect a drop in pressure immediately. They will actually send signals back to our oil control center in Calgary every 5 seconds, and there's a protocol in place so that if we detect a drop in pressure that goes for more than 10 minutes, we will actually shut in the line. So we have valves a minimum of 30 kilometers apart, and what will happen if we detect it, we will actually shut off both those valves and the flow of oil to keep and then immediately dispatch staff, either an aerial search or a ground search, as quickly as possible to see what's going on, and then if there's anything happening, we will get in there as quickly as possible to make sure if there is a leak, it is kept as small as possible. And I should point out that we are currently operating an oil pipeline. It's the first leg of the Keystone pipeline within Canada, and it's been in operation for about a year. And we have had a few very small. The only problems that we've detected have been some small problems above ground with valves and fittings that can just basically be unscrewed and replaced. And in Canada, I think we've lost basically about 16 barrels of oil so far. So the goal is, in terms of oil operation, we have found so far in our history, we have found that underground we do very, very well. And any problems that have been small above ground, easily remedied with a very small footprint. We're going to work to keep it that way.
Can we just ask you, not as a member of TransCanada, just as a member of the world, how you feel morally about the continued
Ask me on the record.
Yeah.
Is the camera rolling? Yeah,
how do
absolutely.
you feel morally about the continued use of crude oils?
Certainly, and this is an important point about the use.
Can I
At
add one thing, sorry?
Yeah, go for it, man.
I want to keep in mind the future, the environment of the future generations.
Understood,
as well.
understood. At TransCanada, we understand that we need to move to a more renewable future. That is why we have invested heavily in wind. We've invested in atomic power. We have made significant investments in renewables. At the same time, organizations like the International Energy Agency have stated that going through 2035 at least, and possibly further, fossil fuels, crude oil, gasoline, are going to be needed to power our homes, our businesses, our vehicles. And so there continues to be a need for humanity to use these fossil fuels into the near future. And so what we are trying to do is to be able to transport oil from producers to the markets who need it and to the consumers who need it. So that's the first step. Now you asked about me personally. Personally speaking, from someone who actually grew up with a pipeline crossing their land, as someone who works for TransCanada, I would not work for a company that would have that did not do its job properly. That was a polluter. I mean, this is going to be the most or one of the most high-tech, effective pipelines in North America. TransCanada has an outstanding safety record. They're one of the top pipeline producers or pipeline operators for safety in North America, in Europe, and I'm proud to be associated with it.
Awesome.
There we go.
So
I didn't answer that really well, but yeah, and you know, when I was growing up, there was actually a pipeline that crossed our land. And the company was. I need to check and see which one it was. I'm not sure it was TransCanada, but yeah, it was no problem. It's still there. You know, we are not just employees of TransCanada. We are members of the public like anyone else. We are affected by climate change. We are concerned, and the goal is to. I mean, this pipeline, both Energy East and the proposed Keystone XL pipeline, studies have shown that they will have no negative impact on greenhouse gases. The pump stations will be electric. They're going to have a very clean carbon footprint, as clean as possible, and they will not have a significant impact on greenhouse gas emissions. That needed to be said.
Sure. And you mentioned that agency that says that we will
the International Energy Agency, the IEA, every year they put a thing out. They put out a very, very thick report, and it makes actual fascinating reading. And they rate oil and gas from different regions. Yeah. They rate renewables, and they are the recognized source. And I highly recommend. The IEA, I'm not really sure actually. Have a look. I know they are. Yeah, I think they're.
That's where you guys were based.
That's certainly one of them. I mean, there's all kinds of studies, but I know that the IEA is extremely well regarded, and that's where I would direct people to have a look. It's extremely informative, and anyone interested in crude oil production, in energy production, in the future of renewables, their commercial potential, where they are, what they can do, I highly recommend they go look at it. It's very interesting reading.